Section 60 of English Synonyms and Antonyms. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Mario Pineda. English Synonyms and Antonyms by James Champlin Fernald. Slang to stain. Slang. Synonyms: cant, colloquialism, vulgarism, vulgarity. A colloquialism is an expression not coarse or low, and perhaps not incorrect, but below the literary grade. Educated persons are apt to allow themselves some colloquialisms in familiar conversation, which they would avoid in writing or public speaking. Slang, in the primary sense, denotes expressions that are either coarse and rude in themselves or chiefly current among the coarser and ruder part of the community. There are also many expressions current in special senses in certain communities that might be characterized as slang, as college slang, club slang, racing slang. In the evolution of language, many words originally slang are adopted by good writers and speakers, and ultimately take their place as accepted English. A vulgarism is an expression decidedly incorrect, and the use of which is a mark of ignorance or low breeding. Cant, as used in this connection, denotes the barbarous jargon used as a secret language by thieves, tramps, etc. Compare diction, language. Slow. Synonyms: dawdling, delaying, deliberate, dilatory, drowsy, dull, gradual, inactive, inert, lingering, moderate, procrastinating, slack, sluggish, tardy. Slow signifies moving through a relatively short distance or with a relatively small number of motions in a given time. Slow also applies to that which is a relatively long while in the beginning or accomplishing something. A watch or a clock is said to be slow when its indications are behind those of the standard time. Tardy is applied to that which is behind the proper or desired time, especially in doing a work or arriving at a place. Deliberate and dilatory are used of persons, though the latter might be used also of things, as of a stream. A person is deliberate who takes a noticeably long time to consider and decide before acting, or who acts or speaks as if he were deliberating at every point. A person is dilatory who lays aside, or puts off as long as possible, necessary or required action. Both words may be applied either to undertaking or to doing. Gradual, Latin gradus, a step, signifies advancing by steps and refers to slow but regular and sure progression. Slack refers to action that seems to indicate a lack of tension, as of muscle or a will. Sluggish, to action that seems as if reluctant to advance. Antonyms. See synonyms for nimble. Sneer. Synonyms: fling, jive, jeer, mock, scoff, taunt. A sneer may be simply a contemptuous facial contortion, or it may be some brief satirical utterance that throws a contemptuous sidelight on what it attacks without attempting to prove or disprove. A depreciatory implication may be given in a sneer such as could only be answered by elaborate argument or proof, which would seem to give the attack undue importance. Who can refute a sneer? Paley, Moral Philosophy, Book 5, Chapter 9. A fling is careless and commonly pettish. A taunt is intentionally insulting and provoking. The sneer is supercilious. The taunt is defiant. The jeer and jive are uttered. The jive is bitter and often sly or covert. The jeer is rude and open. A scoff may be in act or word, and is commonly directed against that which claims honor, reverence, or worship. Compare banter. Preposition: only an essentially vicious mind is capable of a sneer at virtue. Socialism. Synonyms: collectivism, communism, Fabianism. Socialism, as defined by its advocates, is a theory of civil polity that aims to secure the reconstruction of society, increase of wealth, and a more equal distribution of the products of labor through the public collective ownership of land and capital, as distinguished from property, and the public collective management of all industries. Its aim is extended industrial cooperation. Socialism is a purely economic term, applying to land ownership and productive capital. Many socialists call themselves collectivists, and their system collectivism. Communism would divide all things, including the profits of individual labor, among members of the community. Many of its advocates would abolish marriage and the family relation. Anarchism is properly an antonym of socialism, as it would destroy by violence if necessary all existing government or social order, leaving the future to determine what, if anything, should be raised upon the ruins. Sound. Synonyms: noise, note, tone. Sound is the sensation produced through the organs of hearing or the physical cause of this sensation. Sound is the most comprehensive word of this group, applying to anything that is audible. Tone is sound considered as having some musical quality or as expressive of some feeling. Noise is sound considered with a reference to musical quality or as distinctly unmusical or discordant. Thus, in the most general sense, noise and sound scarcely differ, and we say almost indifferently, "I heard a sound," or "I heard a noise." We speak of a fine, musical, or pleasant sound, but never thus of a noise. In music, tone may denote either the musical sound or the interval between two such sounds, but in the most careful usage the latter is not distinguished as the interval, leaving tone to stand only for the sound. Note in music strictly denotes the character representing a sound, but in loose popular usage it denotes the sound also, and becomes practically equivalent to tone. Aside from its musical use, tone is chiefly applied to the quality of the human voice by which feeling is expressed. As he spoke in a cheery tone, the word is similarly applied to the voices of birds and other animals, and sometimes to inanimate objects. As used of a musical instrument, tone denotes the general quality of its sounds collectively considered. Speak. Synonyms: announce, articulate, chat, chatter, converse, declaim, declare, deliver, discourse, enunciate, express, pronounce, say, talk, tell, utter. To utter is to give forth as an audible sound, articulate or not. To talk is to utter a succession of connected words, ordinarily with the expectation of being listened to. To speak is to give articulate utterance even to a single word. The officer speaks the word of command, but does not talk it. To speak is also to utter words with the ordinary intonation, as distinguished from singing. To chat is ordinarily to utter in a familiar conversational way. To chatter is to talk in an empty, ceaseless way like a magpie. Prepositions: speak to, address, a person. Speak with a person, converse with them. Speak of or about a thing, make it a subject of remark. Speak on or upon a subject. In parliamentary language, speak to the question. Speech. Synonyms: address, discourse, disquisition, dissertation, harangue, language, oration, oratory, sermon, speaking, talk, utterance. Speech is the general word for utterance of thought in language. A speech may be the delivering of one's sentiments in the simplest way. An oration is an elaborate and prepared speech. A harangue is a vehement appeal to passion, or a speech that has something disputatious and combative in it. A discourse is a set speech or an indefinite subject intended to convey instruction. Compare conversation, diction, language. Antonyms: hush, silence, speechlessness, stillness, taciturnity. Spontaneous. Synonyms: automatic, free, impulsive, instinctive, involuntary, unbidden, voluntary, willing. That is spontaneous which is freely done, with no external compulsion, and in human actions without a special premeditation or distinct determination of the will. That is voluntary which is freely done with the distinct act of will. That is involuntary which is independent of the will and perhaps in opposition to it. A willing act is not only in accordance with will, but with desire. Those voluntary and involuntary, which are antonyms of each other, are both partial synonyms of spontaneous. We speak of spontaneous generation, spontaneous combustion, spontaneous sympathy, an involuntary start, an unbidden tear, voluntary agreement, willing submission. A babe's smile in answer to that of his mother is spontaneous. The smile of a pouting child wheedled into good humor is involuntary. In physiology, the action of the heart and lungs is called involuntary. The growth of the hair and nails is spontaneous. The action of swallowing is voluntary up to a certain point, beyond which it becomes involuntary or automatic. In the fullest sense of that which is not only without the will, but distinctly in opposition to it, or compulsory, involuntary becomes an antonym, not only of voluntary but of spontaneous, as involuntary servitude. A spontaneous outburst of applause is of necessity an act of volition, but so completely dependent of sympathetic impulse that it would seem frigid to call it voluntary, while to call it involuntary would imply some previous purpose or inclination not to applaud. Spy. Synonyms: detective, emissary, scout. The scout and the spy are both employed to obtain information of the numbers, movements, etc. of an enemy. The scout lurks on the outskirts of the hostile army with such concealment as the case admits of, but without disguise. A spy enters in disguise within the enemy's lines. A scout, if captured, has the rights of a prisoner of war. A spy is held to have forfeited all rights and is liable, in case of capture, to capital punishment. An emissary is rather political than military, sent rather to secretly influence opponents than to bring information concerning them. So far as he does the latter, he is not only an emissary, but a spy. Stain. Synonyms: blood, color, discolor, disgrace, dishonor, dye, soil, spot, sully, tarnish, tinge, tint. To color is to impart a color desired or undesired, temporary or permanent, or, in the transitive use, to assume a color in any way, as he colored with shame and vexation. To dye is to impart a color intentionally and with a view to permanence, and especially so as to pervade the substance or fiber of that to which it is applied. To stain is primarily to discolor, to impart a color undesired and perhaps unintended, and which may or may not be permanent. Thus, a character dyed in the wool is one that has received some early, permanent, and pervading influence. A character stained with crime or guilt is debased and perverted. The stain is, however, used of giving an intended and perhaps pleasing color to wood, glass, etc., by an application of coloring matter which enters the substance a little below the surface, in distinction from painting, in which coloring matter is spread upon the surface. Dyeing is generally said of wool, yarn, cloth, or similar materials, which are dipped into the coloring liquid. Figuratively, a standard or a garment may be dyed with blood in honorable warfare. An assassin's weapon is stained with the blood of his victim. To tinge is to color slightly, and may also be used of giving a slight flavor or a slight admixture of one ingredient or quality with another that is more pronounced. End of section 60.